Desmos is sitting on the SAT ready to carry you into that 1500 plus score, but only if you actually know how to use it. Now, the problem is most students don't, and 90% of prep resources don't. Desmos is fast, precise, and if you know what you're doing, it turns a lot of hard SAT questions into literal copy-paste screenshot and move on point. In this video, I want to show you exactly how to use Desmos the right way, going over examples so you can save time on your exam, avoid every mistake, spot faster solution paths, and lock in points on questions most students overthink and finally break through that 1500 ceiling. So lock in, because this is going to be a very important video for SAT takers. The first thing you need to know before we start working on the first example is that the Desmos calculator you practice with online is almost identical to the one you will be using on the test. Same mechanics, same tools, same advantage, which means that everything you're about to learn today in this video transfers directly to the real SAT. Let's start. So say, for example, you have a problem like this, right? You're given a system of equation, right? And they're asking you for the value of x, right? So instead of using substitution method or elimination, what you could do is directly plug in these two equations using Desmos, 3x equals 3, and basically look at where they intersect, right? There, right? And that will be your solution, right? So in this case, right, so it's going to give you, they're asking for the x value, right? So the x value is 2, so your answer would be the second choice, so it'd be B, right? So let's move on to the next problem. The next question says, consider the quadratic expression 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to the given expression, right? So you're given a quadratic, right? And say, for example, you don't know how to factor, or perhaps it's going to take a while. So what you could do, especially now that the leading term, right, is not 1, right? Because when it's 1, it's very straightforward. But when it's not 1, it can be a bit tricky. Right, so what you can do is that first you plug in the given equation, and now you know that when you factor a quadratic equation, the factored form is the same as the original form, right? So when you plug it in into your Desmos calculator, the graphs should overlap, right? So first you plug in the first option, right? You can see that they don't overlap, right? So this means that this is not the answer, right? So then you try the second one, right? 2x minus 3, it's more like this, right? So that doesn't overlap either. Well, you go to the third, eventually you'll find one that will overlap, x plus 2. No, okay, I literally put the last one, okay, minus 4, and then 2x plus 3. And you can see that this overlaps, right? So this is the correct answer, right? So in this case, we had to go through the whole thing. But if, you're not comfortable factoring, this could be one way to do it. Let's go to the next question. So in this question, they're asking you to solve the following rational equation, right? So x equals, you have two fractions equal to each other. And so in this case, well, all you have to do is just plug it in, right? So, and here you're going to want to be careful with, the way you set it up, right? So equals, you have x plus 3, and at the bottom you have 2x plus 10, okay? And basically, right, this will tell you, because you only have x's here, right? So the only output for this rational equation would be x. So then you look where it crosses the x-axis, right? And it's going to be at 5, right? Well, perhaps if this is that difficult to see, what you could also do is you could say y equals this first expression, right? And then y, and by the way, the parentheses is not important here, and y equals this expression. And then you see where these two intersect. And you can see that they intersect at x equals 5, right? So, and if you're having trouble understanding this logic, right, basically, where if y equals this first expression and y is also equal to the second expression, so you could say that the first expression is also equal to the second expression, right? So if a equals b and a is also equal to c, well, you could say that b is also equal to c, right? So that's basically the logic behind this. Right, let's move on to the next problem. So now, this problem says, consider two functions, r and s, defined as follows, right? You're given the two functions, right? There's r and s. But what is the value of r of s of -2? This is what you're going to do. you're going to first plot r of x minus 4x cubed plus 3x squared, right? And then that's r of x, and then it's there. You just can't see it. There it is. And then s of x equals 2 over x minus 1. So now they're asking for r of s of -2. So you're literally going to just write exactly what it's asking with -2. And there you have it, right? And you just, so this button will convert the decimal into fraction, right? So this will give you 220 over 81, right? So that'll be answer. So let's move on to the next one. Now, here it says that, so you're given a system of equation, y equals 4x squared minus 15x plus k, and y equals 5x plus 6, right? Here you have a constant in there, and notice that the system of equations constantly come up. So if you're struggling with, SAT content, system of equations, and you need perhaps like some guidance or anything like that, make sure to follow us on Instagram so that you can get all of these insights regarding solving these type of problems, or if there's any change regarding like the SAT structure or anything like that, you'll be up to date. Just make sure to follow us on Instagram. The link will be in the description. For this problem, right, so you have the two equations, right? So what you're gonna do is, well, you plot the first one, or plot them both. X squared minus 15x plus k, right? So here you have parameter here, right? So you're going to click on k, right? So which means that the k can have like different values, right? So we're going to leave it like that for now. And then y equals 5x plus 6, right? So they're saying that it has one solution. Right now, if k equals 1, well, you can see that it has two solutions. Because remember, in the system of equation, the solution is where the two functions intersect, right? So if they're intersecting at 2 points, it means that you have two solutions there, right? So this is not the correct value of k that you're looking for. So what you're going to do is you're going to try the different values they give you. Let's try 28. Well, it looks like it's at 2 points here, right? So it's like 1, 2. So that's not it, right? You go 30, nope. And let's go 31. And this looks like they're intersecting at exactly 1 point, right? And see there, right? So just for the sake of trying, and this is not even intersecting, right? So our correct answer would be, correct choice would be C. Okay, next. Now, let's look at our next problem. Right, it says, consider the system of equation, another one, right? So you have two system of equations, and they're asking you how many solutions the system of equation have. Well, this one you already know how to do this, right? So you just have to plot both equations and then see how many times they intersect, right? So there, 2x plus 7. So you can see how much time this can save you. If you didn't know this, imagine how much time you would waste trying to solve this problem. You have to like set them equal to each other and then solve. But this, you just plug it in and say like, oh, 1, 2. And the answer is 2. Forget about the 0. Right, the answer is 2. Right, so you can just go much faster and then move on to the next problem. So this problem says, consider the linear function f of x equals ax plus b, where a and b are constant. Based on the table, what is the value of a plus b, right? So when you're given a table, what you're going to have to do, first thing you do is you type table, and then the table comes up and you're going to just replicate what's been given, right? So you have -2, -5, right? And then, so you click on that little button and it's going to give you basically the equation of the line, right? They told you that the equation, the linear function is of the form ax plus b, right? Here's your a, right? Because ax plus b with 5x plus 5. So your a will be 5 and your b will also be 5, right? So if you were to do 5 plus 5, the answer is 10, okay? So this would be choice A, okay? Next problem. It says, consider the quadratic function h of x equals 2x squared minus 16x plus 35. What is the minimum value of h of x? When we're talking about, maximums and minimums, right? So like you already know, like it cannot be like a linear equation, so it can either be perhaps like a quadratic equation, right? In this case, it's a quadratic equation, right? So let's plot this and see if we have a max or a min, right? So let's see, 16x plus 35, right? So you have a min here, right? A max would be, this is a max, right? You have a max there. A min is like this, right? So you have the bottom, max is like the top. And they're saying, what is the minimum value of h of x, right? So what you do is you just come there, and then the value will be 3, right? The value is the y, not the x, right? So we have 3. Okay, next. So now you can even solve inequalities using Desmos, right? So for example, you have which of the following order pairs x, y satisfies the inequality 2x plus 4y greater than 8, right? So what you do is you're going to plot 2x plus 4y, right? And then you're going to plot these points, right? So you're going to plot these. That's the first point. The second one, 2, 1, right? And you could plot them if you want. You can label them. And then 3, 1. Okay. So let's look at these. I can only see one of them. Okay. So you have to zoom in here, right? So you have the 3 point, right? And you can see that, 2, 1 is right on the dotted line. So this is not a solution, right? Because, right, if it was like, greater than or equal to, then we could take that. But because it's strictly greater than, then, this is not a solution. So the correct answer would be the first one. So 1, 2, and 3, 1, right? So it would be 1 and 3 only, right? Okay, so now it says, what is the x-intercept of the graph y equals h of x in the xy plane, right? So you have h of x equals 3x minus 9. Imagine if you didn't have Desmos, you would have to plot this, by hand, and then, try to figure out what the x-intercept is. Or you don't need to plot it, or you could plug in, 0 and then so on, right? But with Desmos, everything is just visual, right? You could just literally just look at the graph, right? They're asking for the x-intercept. There it is, right? 3, right? So, right, 3, 0, right? And if they were asking for the y-intercept, well, you would just have to look at where it intersects with the y-axis, right? So that'll be 0, -9. And look here, right? They even gave you that option. So this is for them to know if you know the difference between the x-intercept and the y-intercept, right? So although you can use Desmos to find answers faster, but you still need to be comfortable with the concepts. You need to understand what you're doing, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Make sure you all understand what you're doing. You're comfortable with the concepts. Okay. And finally, it says find the center of the circle represented by the equation x squared minus 8x plus y squared minus 2y equals -8, right? So squared minus 8x plus y squared minus 2y equals -8. So here they're asking for the center of the circle, right? So you can see here, right, that the center would be the point in the middle of, right, 4 and 4, -2, right? It's right here, right? So it may help to perhaps, okay, you could say, oh, let's see if this perhaps like 1, right? Sometimes I like to do, it's like I can do y equals 1, just to, make sure that it's the points that I'm talking about. If you have weird point, right, what you could do is you can also do this, right? You can do midpoint, right? And then you're going to type the points that you have here. So there's 4, 4, right? So you're going to do 4, 4, and you're going to do 4, -2, 4, -2, right? So if you're given, if it's not clear, probably, let's say, for example, if you have like 2.1 or like, yes, it's a midpoint or something, right, where it's not as clear to see, where you could do that, and then it tells you that, okay, it's 4, 1, right? It tells you this point, right? So, so there, find the center would be like a 4, 1. If you or your child is serious about building the structured path to 1500 plus score, you can book a free strategy session with me using the link below. We've helped hundreds of students reach that level over the past years, and this session is where we break down what that journey would look like for your specific situation, step by step. Spots are limited each month, so make sure to reserve your spot.